Shalom and welcome to Biblical Faith with Sam Peak. We invite you to join us as Sam brings a study in the Torah from the Jewish sages. And now our speaker, Sam Peak.
Okay. Shalom Aleichem.
Aleichem shalom.
See, I started the right way in this one because I know the last time I really threw you. Yeah. Okay. We're in our study of Pirkei Avot. We're in chapter 3 of Pirkei Avot, and we're in Mishnah number 5. Rabbi Chanina. Just to mention it very, very quickly, we're using the book Pirkei Avot is the name of the book, which is a commentary based on selections from the Maharal's Derech Chaim, a commentary that he wrote on Pirkei Avot, put together by Rabbi Tuvia Basser. And the Maharal, beautiful Rabbi Judenlo of Prague of about 500 years ago, he was really something else. In fact, I'm always very, very fascinated with anything the Maharal talks about. He has a particular perspective on things, and of course uses his own particular language, like all the great rabbis do. But he's very, very special. Anyway, let's read this Mishnah again. Rabbi Chanina ben Chachinai says, one who is awake at night, or one who travels on the highway alone, or one who turns his heart to idleness has risked his life. By the way, before we get back to it, this is the text that the Maharal was using, according to his text, because we have different versions sometimes of Pirkei Avot, just minor things. But according to the Maharal's text and according to his explanation, there are 3 separate situations here: awake at night, traveling on the road, or turning your heart to idleness, okay, has risked his life. There is an alternative text which says one who is awake at night and traveling on the road, okay, and turns his heart to idleness, actually linking almost all those 3 things where you can understand it. Like if you're awake at night and you're traveling on the road and you link and you start thinking idle thoughts, okay, then there's a possibility of you risking your life. But the Maharal sees this text as 3 separate things, all right? And they probably all get me, every one here. Kind of scared. This Mishnah is kind of scaring me a little bit. No, it's not. I mean, because you just have to trust in Hashem, no matter what you're doing, no matter where you go. Doesn't matter. But the safety is to always have in your car, if you're traveling at night, especially if you're alone, is always have really good Torah teaching that you can listen to in the car. And this is my practical advice to you. Okay. So let's back up where we were before. Life is fraught with danger, the Maharal says. Robbery, physical illness, emotional distress are some of the dangers that threaten us. But these things are a natural part of God's creation. And He has also set up within His creation a system that provides protection. We may not know just how He keeps us from danger, but this Mishnah does advise us of 3 things that put us in danger, put us outside that protection, is the way he puts it. And anyone who doesn't heed these 3 things takes his life in his hands. Okay. One who is awake at night. Let's tackle them one at a time. The Maharal says night was actually created for only 2 purposes: sleeping and learning. Okay? Sleeping and learning Torah. Although night is a time of danger, Hashem provides protection for a person who engages in one of these 2 activities, either sleeping or learning Torah. Okay? If a person engages in another activity, then he has removed himself from God's protective system. It says, it should be noted, however, that earning a living also assures us the same protection as learning if you're having to work at night. Because work is an essential requirement of learning Torah. As the rabbis have said, and he's quoting now from Eruvin 65a, all Torah study that is not joined with work will cease in the end. I'm going to refrain from commenting on Oh, no, I'm just not going to comment on it. But I really want to. No, I don't want to speak. It's because to be truthful with you, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to do it in a way where it wouldn't come out as to be Lashon Hara about a lot of so-called, or they consider themselves Torah scholars today, who do not work. Okay, and they obviously ignore this. So anyway, so without speaking any more of that, let me just move on, okay? Most of you caught what I'm saying anyway. So all Torah study that is not joined with work will cease in the end. So work is joined with Torah study. It's literally a part of Torah study, has to be. And that also provides the same protection as either sleeping or as learning, okay? Indeed, all productive activities, he says, and here Derek Eretz is manners, the way of the land, the way things are done, okay? They are a mitzvah if it's a productive activity, and it warrants God's protection from the inherent dangers of the night. Then, one who travels on the highway alone. Now that really does get me, because I do this absolutely all the time. Of course, vehicles are a little safer than walking, or horseback, or wagon, or whatever. Well, yeah, I know. Basically, you're absolutely right. But the idea of the Maharal says, and we always have to remember to put ourselves back in the Maharal's time, okay, that the highway runs at a distance from settlements, such as cities or villages, and because of that very reason, it's a place of danger. There is safety in being with other people. And when a person is outside of a settlement, he is without that natural protection. This is very clear. I mean, you can figure this out. The Mishnah, he says, actually cautions only against traveling alone, because two people together traveling are not as susceptible to harm. Now he's going to tell us the reason that is. Because Hashem accompanies two people more than he does one. The reason is that the more people resemble him, the more God accompanies them. And two people together have more Tselem Elokim, image of God, all right? Tselem Elokim than does one person. Indeed, he says, three people have even more Tselem Elokim than two people. He says, and this fact sheds light on a lot of other Mishnayot. I mean, if we'll remember this, there'll be a number of Mishnayot. He gives some here that we've already actually covered, chapter 3 and 3, and then one that we're going to look at in 3:7. No, I'm sorry. No, that's right. Anyway, it sheds light on other Mishnayot that stated in a similar way how the divine presence accompanies two who learn together more than it does one person, and that it accompanies three who learn together more than it does two. In fact, we'll see that very soon, okay, in a Mishnah. Now we can say, and I'm always on the guard, and I've done this for so long because I can feel it, because the natural thing we say was, well, what exactly is he saying? Is he saying God's not with me? Just by myself? He's not with me? Of course he is. When he says they have more of Tselem Elokim, Tselem, which is image, really it's Tselem, Tsel is literally a shadow, okay, in Hebrew. T-S-E-L, Tsel. Tselem, and this is the words that is actually used in Bereshit, in the book of Genesis, when it says that human beings, Adam is made Tselem Elokim. So we would think literally the shadow of Elokim. It's very interesting. In modern Hebrew, all words that have to do with an image, or a picture, or a photograph, or even a camera, come from this root, tsel. Because it's extremely interesting, because what a photograph actually is catching is your shadow. Isn't that interesting? That's literally what it catches. It's catching the reflecting. That's how I see you too. I don't see you, I see your shadow. Okay? Because I see, what I see is the light that is reflected off of you. Well, your shadow on the ground is the same kind of concept even. It's still your shadow. And so the idea here is that all human beings, and we're going to see this more as we go along, all human beings, they all come from Hashem. They're all made in the same mold, if you will, though, and yet they're all totally different, which speaks completely about that Hashem is really big. You understand what I'm trying to say? There's not any one person that all of God is on you. Do you understand what I'm saying? Every one of us, in our own individuality, in our own specific, the way we specifically think and speak and do things, and all of these things, this also is part of Tselem Elohim, the image of God. So the more people join together, the more representation of Tselem Elohim, and this is what the Maharal is trying to get across. That means the presence of God that's with me, and then I'm with you, or with you, or with you, then the more presence of your individual presence of God that's with you is joined together, and it's more. That's all he's meaning. He's not meaning that, or that some people have it all and other people have nothing. That's not what he's trying to say. Okay? All right.
That's good.
And that's why also this, because what we're going to talk about later, how the divine presence, the Shekinah, accompanies two who learn together more than it does one, and it accompanies three more than it does two. Or one who turns his heart to idleness has risked his life. Dangers, he says, are present at any time and at any place, and it's only because of Hashem's protection that we expect not to come to harm. In fact, this is another thing that we shouldn't take for granted. Okay? Should be always thankful for. The closer we are to Hashem, then the closer we are to His protection. Conversely, he says, to the extent that a person rejects the opportunity to be close to Hashem, he rejects living within His dominion, or within Malkut, within kingdom, and he loses a degree of His protection. Okay. Let's move on. We could stay there a long time and have to explain extremely profound thoughts on Hashgacha Pratit, divine providence and personal providence and all of these things. But in what we're doing right now, it's not, these are things we do need to talk about. But basically, don't lose sight of this, okay? Don't lose sight of the fact that everything is under God's complete and perfect control, okay? Okay, so you say that, so you say, okay, so that means if everything's under His complete control, that He'll protect me no matter what I do, so I'll jump off a building tomorrow. And surely He'll protect me. No, He'll let you kill yourself. More than likely, okay? Number one, for even beginning to tempt Him.
That's right.
Because it's like, that's testing Him in ways like that is like thumbing your nose at Him, And so I don't recommend in any way trying to test Him in those kind of things. But still, we have to realize that He's in complete control. What this is advice on how to stay out of dangerous situations, is what it is. All right? Where you're not testing Him. Literally. Okay. Very interesting Mishnah coming up. Listen to this one. Rabbi Nechunya ben Hakana, who, by the way, was an extremely famous rabbi. I hope I'm not making a mistake here, so I won't say it because it might be a mistake. I'll figure it out for the next time we're together, and then I'll see. But I almost think that he's really the author of the Bahir text, which is a very first century Kabbalistic work, but I'm not completely positive of that, so let me check on that and we'll get back to you. Anyway, Rabbi Nechunya ben Hakanah says, if someone takes upon himself the yoke of Torah, the yoke of government and the yoke of worldly responsibilities or cares, okay, are removed from him. But if someone throws off the yoke of Torah from himself, then the yoke of government and the yoke of worldly responsibilities, they are placed on him. Okay? Let's see what he's talking about. Mishnah number 6, chapter 3. This Mishnah, he says, continues the theme that was introduced earlier in the chapter. And that theme is that the Torah, one of the purposes is the reasons it exists, only one, there are many, but one is that it brings a person close to Hashem. It's for that reason that a person who accepts the yoke of Torah, in other words, to learn and live according to the commandments, according to the mitzvot, accepts the yoke of the Torah, is elevated. A person who does that is elevated to live life closer to the realm, to the world, to the kingdom of the Creator. And he is then less encumbered by the yokes of government and the yokes of worldly needs, all right, or cares. The explanation of this Mishnah starts with the fact, he says, that we can live life on several different planes. Each of them has its own set of rules, obligations, and driving forces. Plane number 1, life revolves around the demands of nature, okay? Living just a physical existence. Plowing, planting, other activities, he says, that are determined by agricultural or environmental considerations. On this level, mankind is subjugated to nature. In other words, where's my next? The only thing is important is physical needs, materialistic needs. That's plane 1. Level or plane number 2, there is a plane of life, he says, on which we live as members of a civilized society. On that level, life is actually constrained, not by nature, but it's constrained by human will. And this is the realm of government. You remember an earlier Mishnah to build upon that, talking about how you should pray for the welfare of the government, because if there wasn't a fear of the government, human beings would devour each other. Okay? So on this level, life is constrained. Now it's not being constrained by nature, by whether we get enough rain or enough sun, or the winter's not too cold, or too much wind, or hail, or this or that. So it's not constrained by nature in this case, but by human will, and that human will is the realm of government, which enacts legislation, which governs social conduct. It determines what it wants people to do and what it doesn't want them to do, okay? And then it decrees laws on them. And people are subjugated to this system by the king. And by the way, there was a king when the Maharal wrote. Prague was the capital of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. And you know, there are all these stories too, by the way, that the emperor of the Austro-Hungarian Empire used to come to the Maharal to try to learn Kabbalah. We don't know why or the purpose of it or anything else, but that it just happened from time to time. Anyway, they are subjugated to this system by the king, through whom the system is also enforced. But the third plane is what Rabbi Basser translates as religion. I wouldn't say it that way, because religion has in this day has almost a negative context. I would say it's the lifestyle of the Torah, the life of a Torah observant person, the life of a person who knows Torah, who studies Torah, who knows Torah, and who lives Torah, who follows the advice. God set up a system to regulate human affairs through the Torah that He gave, and this system is the one that transcends. It goes beyond the demands of nature, and it transcends, he says, the arbitrary choices of government. In this system, people are subjugated to Hashem. One who accepts upon himself, he says, the yoke of the Torah so completely that he is within this God's system, cannot at the same time, he says, fall entirely within the mundane systems of nature and government. He says later in chapter 6, we will encounter the Baraita, and it's going to be in chapter 6 of Pirkei Avot, Mishnah number 2, where it says, "For you can have no freer man than one who engages in the study of Torah, and anyone who engages in the study of Torah becomes elevated." Why? Because Torah is truth. That's the key. It may not be truth according to our experience, or according to our background, or according to some wild notion that we've dreamed up, or according to our emotional feelings at the time, but it is the truth. And it's also the key to, what does Rabbi Arush call it? Or he's quoting from Rabbi Nachman, self-composure. A person can have no self-composure unless they know the truth. And the only way to know the truth is to know the Torah. And then make that a part of you. Even when other things are telling you, no, there's no way that can be true. You know it's true because it's from the Torah. And that gives a soul self-composure in this world, and which is invaluable when it comes to praying. Okay. Sorry about that. I just can't help it. Sometimes I jump somewhere else. Anyway. Yeah. And anyone who engages in the study of Torah becomes elevated, and that Baraita tells us that one who engages in Torah study, what is he elevated from? He is elevated above the domination of the pragmatic systems which are determined by nature or by arbitrary will. What's he saying? Let's go on just a little farther.
Could you tell me what that word means, the barasa? How do you say
A Baraita.
Baraita?
Yeah, a Baraita. Well, he's translating Ashkenazi Hebrew here. I would say it's Sephardic, but Baraita, instead of a Baraisa, it's a Baraita, okay? But that's just because I use Israeli Hebrew and not Ashkenazi, okay? Or either one, is interchangeable, it's not a problem. Okay, anyway. A Baraita is an individual teaching of one of the sages that was not included in the Mishnah, okay? A Baraita is actually a teaching. It's a teaching from any of the sages, but most of them are called this. Actually, that's not true. Everything we're studying is a Baraita, okay? It's a teaching of the sages. The term is often used by speaking of the Baraitot, or Baraitiot, that are in the Tosefta. The Tosefta were all of these Baraita, okay, that weren't included in the Mishnah. And so they're put together in the Tosefta. The Tosefta, it means additional, okay? But a Baraita is a teaching of a Tana, of a Mishnaic sage, who were called Tanas. A Tana, okay? So it's just a teaching. I gave you a big, long, drawn-out explanation when I could have just said a teaching from one of the sages. Okay. All right.
Now we know it.
You know a little more of the background, though. I mean, yeah, but it's a teaching from one of the sages. Let's go on, because what is he talking about? The yoke of the Torah. The yoke. Which, it means just exactly that. But it frees one from the yokes of government and livelihood because, the Maharal says, the rim of sechel, intellect, it transcends the world of pragmatism. It is true that a person, he says, cannot get by without a livelihood. Indeed, a person has to work in order to occupy himself with the Torah. However, when he shoulders the yoke of the Torah, then guess what happens? His income will come to him, just like as before, but now with less effort. And his livelihood will not be a yoke. You see, you can have a yoke of having to earn a living in the natural world, and that can be a yoke to you. or you can accept upon yourself the yoke of the Torah, and then you still have to do the job that you have to do, but it becomes not what it was before. And the reason that's so is because it's coming from Hashem. You're aware of that because what? That's a truth that's found only in the Torah. Yeah. And because it's a truth, it brings a level of freedom and self-composure. Doesn't even mean you may like your work. You may not like it. But you can actually do it with much less angst, much less misery, okay? If you accept the yoke of the Torah. So, his livelihood will not be a yoke. Conversely, though, this Mishnah is teaching us, if he casts off the yoke of the Torah, then he will fall back into the domain of the pragmatic world, and now it becomes burdensome. It's a burden. Let's go on and try to finish this because we only have a few minutes left. The relationship of Torah, livelihood, and government, he says, is symbolically embodied by certain elements of the Holy Temple. Now, he translates the sanctum, Heichal. I much rather translate the palace, okay, Heichal, but it's really the holy place, okay? And it symbolizes this world. The table, the shulchan, was on the north side of that room, and the menorah was on the south side. The innermost chamber of the Heichal, of the palace, housed the ark, the Aron HaKodesh, okay, or the Ark of the Covenant, the Aron HaBrit, which held the tablets of the Ten Commandments, which symbolized the Torah and the yoke of the Torah. Now he goes on and explains this. The monarchy is symbolized by the shulchan, the table, which held the showbread. The king is responsible for the economy, which is represented by the bread on that table. The menorah represents nature because its 7 branches correspond to the 7 days of creation in which nature was set in motion. So you see he's already found the government in the table, and he's found nature in the menorah. And by the way, this is just one level of interpretation of all the furniture, okay? The Torah was in the innermost chamber of the palace, in the Kodesh HaKodashim, the holiest of all holy places, which symbolizes for us, in this case, the upper spiritual world, or at least the connection to it, okay? Because that's really what it is, it's the connection. The yoke of government and the yoke of livelihood are opposite extremes. For government is an arbitrary human system. Livelihood, which comes through agriculture and nature, is imperative. So too the shulchan and the menorah were on opposite sides of the heichal. The contrast between the Torah and the other realms of life surfaces in this symbolism as well. Government and earning a livelihood are normal human affairs. Torah is a spiritual occupation that goes above them both, that transcends them both. Likewise, the tablets of the law were kept in the innermost chamber, separate from and beyond the heichal, where the shulchan and menorah, government and nature, stood. In summary, a person who is immersed in Torah is freed from the constraints and the worries and the trivialities of secular life and is elevated to the highest plane that life offers. I find this very interesting because what Rabbi Nechunya ben Hakana, this unbelievable Kabbalist, is telling us, he's literally describing to us to be connected through the yoke of the Torah to the upper spiritual world, to Hashem himself, to come close to him, and then life in this world can actually be pleasant. Mm-hmm. Whether or not you're making a lot of money, or whether or not you live in a country that, because I mean, not all countries are like the United States here. It's not right for us to read into this the nice things that we have here. Not all governments can be nice. Yeah. Anyway, this is a secret that we need to hold on to, no matter what country we're living in, or where, even in Haaretz, even in the land of Israel, we need to hold on to this. And are you enjoying Pirkei Avot?
Oh,
Then say Todah to Pat. She's the one who twisted my arm. Okay. Very, very spiritual, and yet at the same time extremely practical. Nachon? Okay. All right. So I think we're finished. And at least for this time, with God's help, we'll do it some more with Rabbi Harafta ben Dosa of Kafar Hananya. Okay? Y'all getting all these Hebrew words down, all these Hebrew names? All right. We'll get this one. Shalom Uvracha, peace and a blessing.
Shalom, shalom.
Thank you for joining us in our study. If you enjoyed this study and are interested in learning more from the Torah and the sages of Israel, then check us out on the internet at www.bfm101.com, or you may contact us toll-free at 1-800-639-0169. Our mailing address is Biblical Faith, P.O. Box 2, Abilene, Texas 79604. Until next time, we wish you Shalom Uvracha, peace and a blessing.